So then Moses, as you know, goes to the mountain and comes back and brings the Big Ten. The Big Ten, and I think that Christians like us need to recover the Ten Commandments. I think we've sort of turned them over to the right wing and we need to take them back. And we need to understand them as guidelines for the construction of a viable neighborhood. Because my thesis is those who have experienced God's abundance can get their minds off themselves and care about the neighborhood. So the Ten Commandments are guidelines for how to care about the neighborhood. Now I'm not going to walk through all 10 Commandments, you'd be glad to know, but I'm going to make 4 comments. First 3 commandments: no other gods, no graven images, no taking of God's name in vain, teach Israel that God is not useful. The commandment, thou shalt not take God's name in vain, is not about using foul language. It is about adding God's support to our projects. Conservatives love to add God to the war and make it God's war. The liberals are a bit more benign. They just want to add it to the stewardship campaign. But because God is holy, we are not permitted to equate any of our pet projects with God's holiness, no matter how noble they are. Second, commandments 5 through 9, honor your father and your mother, do not kill, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not bear false witness, I believe are teachings at Mount Sinai that neighbors are entitled to ultimate respect. They are not to be used. They are not a means toward an end. They are not a commodity to be bought and sold and traded. But they are neighbors to be honored. And the way you honor them is by recognizing these restraints and limits. Third, the 10th commandment, thou shalt not covet, is a restraint on acquisitiveness. You go out to your neighbor's wife, your neighbor's house, your neighbor's farm, your neighbor's stuff, on the assumption that acquiring what belongs to other people through sharp economic transactions will disrupt the neighborhood. And the fourth thing that I want to say, at the center of the 10 Commandments is the Sabbath commandment, which I understand to be a regular bodily statement that my life does not consist in production and consumption. Now, if you think about those 10 commandments and those 4 ways of commenting on them that I've done, all of those commandments are anti-Pharaoh. Because in Pharaoh's regime, first of all, Pharaoh claimed to be a god, and so claimed holiness for his whole brick-making enterprise. Second, in Pharaoh's regime, neighbors are not respected, they are used. Third, Pharaoh is the quintessential coveter, in which he always wants more food, more land, more bricks, more slaves, more. And it is impossible to imagine that anybody in Pharaoh's regime ever had a Sabbath. Certainly the peasants never had a Sabbath, the slaves never had a Sabbath. And it's hard to imagine that Pharaoh himself would ever take a day off from reading the quotas and the production schedules and all that. So So what they learned at Mount Sinai, fresh from Pharaoh's regime of anxiety, is that there is another way to organize social power and social goods that does not depend primarily on the force of anxiety, but depends primarily on the capacity for generosity that is rooted in God's abundance. And the children of Israel, so the narrative says, left Mount Sinai with a new dream about what was possible in the world, a dream that was outside Pharaoh's scheme of scarcity. And if you track on through the Torah, which is the guidelines for the new organization of the neighborhood, what you can see eventually that the Sinai Torah is translated to Jerusalem, and at Jerusalem you get that marvelous poetic promise that I quoted this afternoon to some of you, that all nations will come to Jerusalem and they will study the Torah there and they will not learn war anymore. So the Bible has this deep conviction that the Torah that was given to Moses at Mount Sinai contains within it the seeds of a peaceful human community to which Israel was pledged. So that's the three pieces about the core narrative that I invite for your consideration. First of all, the people who are in anxiety have no energy for the common good. Second, that the only thing that will break the power of anxiety is the gift of enormous abundance. And third, people who have experienced enormous abundance can get their minds off themselves for the sake of the neighborhood. Now, out of that then, I want to draw some conclusions that Pharaoh's kingdom of scarcity is alive and well and aggressive among us. Its current form is entitled consumerism, in which there is always a frantic hunger for more that is sustained by an aggressive military. People who live in a society of entitled consumerism are made endlessly restless and anxious so that you never take a break from the pursuit of the next thing that is to be acquired. And I think that maybe the most obvious place where this propulsion of anxiety is visible among us, maybe it's not true among you, but where I live, little children and grade school children live pressured lives of always having to get to the next thing, and it reflects the anxiety of their parents that if their kids do not do all of these things, they won't get into the right kindergarten, and they won't get into the right school, and they won't get into the right college, and they won't get the right job, and they won't make lots of money, and they'll just be failures. There is an alternative to the kingdom of scarcity. The alternative has been entrusted to the church. This is the hard part. That alternative requires a departure. You may know that the biblical word for departure is exit. It means a going out from the kingdom of anxiety. Third, see if this makes sense. All human persons must make the journey from anxiety through abundance to neighborliness in order to remain human. All Jews